The Grand Convergence Hall stretched upward like a cathedral built by giants. Its walls were made of crystallized starlight, shifting through colors that had no names in human languages. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the chamber, her hands bound with energy restraints that hummed softly against her wrists. She did not look afraid. She stood straight, her dark eyes scanning the faces of the beings who would decide her fate. Above her, arranged in a massive circle that dominated the hall, sat the Galactic Council. 4 species had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. The Kretek, insectoid creatures whose compound eyes reflected no mercy. The Valorians, tall and pale, who spoke in harmonics that made human ears ache. The Rothans, massive beings of stone and crystal who moved slowly but thought even slower. And the Slick, serpentine and cold, whose forked tongues tasted the air as if searching for weakness. At the highest point sat the elder magistrate, a Valorian named Thel Sorin. His robes flowed like liquid silver, and his 3-fingered hands rested on the arms of a throne carved from a meteor that had witnessed the birth of stars. He looked down at Elena with something that might have been pity, or perhaps contempt. With the Valorians, it was always hard to tell. Ambassador Elena Vasquez of Earth, Thel Sorin's voice echoed through the chamber without need for amplification. You stand accused of crimes against the cosmic order. You have refused the Council's lawful directive to abandon human colonies in the outer reach sectors. You have denied our authority. You have encouraged rebellion among your people. How do you answer these charges? Elena took a breath. She had prepared for this moment for months, ever since the Council had summoned her to Nexus Prime under the pretense of negotiations. She had known it was a trap. She had come anyway, because someone had to stand up and say the words that needed to be said. I answer that your charges are lies built on a foundation of tyranny, she said clearly. Her voice carried through the hall, amplified by the chamber's perfect acoustics. The colonies you demand we abandon are on worlds that were unclaimed. We followed every protocol, filed every survey, respected every boundary. We did everything your laws required. And you still want us gone, because you fear us. A hiss rippled through the council. The slick representative, Consul Vexthar, rose from his seat. His scales gleamed like oil in firelight. Fear you? His laughter was a sound like breaking glass. Humanity is barely 3 centuries into space travel. We have civilizations older than your entire evolutionary history. We do not fear you, Ambassador. We pity you. You are children playing with fire, and we must act before you burn yourselves and others. Elena's jaw tightened. Then let me present my evidence. Let me show the Council the documented attacks on our colonies. The plagues that appeared from nowhere. The equipment failures that killed hundreds. The asteroids that just happened to drift into collision courses with our stations. Accidents, you called them. Coincidences, but we found your fingerprints on every single one. She gestured, and her lawyer, a young human named David Park, stepped forward with a data tablet. He was shaking, but he held it out toward the Council. We have proof, Elena continued. Communications between Council operatives discussing sabotage, financial records showing payments to pirates who raided our supply lines, genetic markers and plague samples that match Crytek bioweapons. You have been trying to destroy us slowly, quietly, so the rest of the galaxy would not see you for what you truly are. Thel Sorin did not even look at the tablet. These so-called evidence files are irrelevant to these proceedings. The Council's wisdom is beyond question. Our decisions are made for the good of all species, not merely one. Translation, Elena said, her voice sharp now. You're not even going to look at the evidence because you've already decided my fate. This is not a trial. This is a show. An execution with paperwork. The Rothan representative, a being called Stone Who Remembers, spoke for the first time. Its voice was like grinding rocks, slow and heavy. You speak of justice, human, but your species knows nothing of justice. You war among yourselves. You poison your own world. You breed without control and consume without thought. You are a virus, and viruses must be contained." Elena laughed, and the sound was bitter. "You talk about peace while you enslave 40 species across your empire. You talk about wisdom while you stagnate, forbidding new ideas, crushing innovation, keeping the galaxy locked in your ancient patterns. You are not peacekeepers. You are prison wardens, and you are terrified that humanity will not stay in its cell." "Enough!" Thelsoren's voice cracked like thunder. "You have sealed your fate with your own words, Ambassador. The Council finds you guilty of insubordination, rebellion, and crimes against cosmic order. Your sentence is death by purification flame, to be carried out immediately. Perhaps your death will teach your species the humility they lack." Elena felt her heart hammering in her chest, but she kept her face calm. She had known this was coming. She had written her will months ago. She had recorded messages for her wife Sarah, for her daughter Maya, for the Earth Assembly. She had prepared. "Before you execute me," she said quietly, "I invoke my right under Council law to make a final statement. You cannot deny me that, not without violating your own precious order." Thelsoren's face twisted with annoyance, but he nodded. "Speak then. Let your last words be recorded for history." Elena turned slowly, looking at each section of the Council, at the observers from 100 worlds who watched from the galleries, at the cameras that would broadcast this across the galaxy. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. "My name is Elena Vasquez. I am a mother, a wife, a daughter of Earth. I came here seeking peace. I offered compromise. I showed respect, even when it was not deserved. And you are going to kill me, not because I broke your laws, but because you fear what my people represent: change, growth, the end of your control." She paused, and now her voice grew harder, like steel being forged. "But you are making a mistake. You think you are making an example of me. You think my death will frighten humanity into submission. You do not understand us at all. We have a saying on Earth: you can kill a person, but you cannot kill an idea. And the idea of freedom, once planted, cannot be burned away." "You are not making an example of me," Elena said, and now she smiled, fierce and proud. "You are making an enemy of Earth. My people will see what you do here today. They will see that your justice is a lie, that your peace is oppression. And they will remember. Humans are very good at remembering." She straightened her shoulders. "When my wife asks why I died, I want her to know it was because I refused to bow. When my daughter asks what I stood for, I want her to know it was for truth. And when the people of Earth ask what they should do now, I want them to know my answer: do not forgive, do not forget, do not surrender. Make them pay for every drop of blood. Make them regret the day they decided humanity was weak enough to kill." The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted. Guards moved forward, but Thelsoren raised his hand for silence. "Take her to the flame spire," he said coldly. "Let the galaxy watch. Let them see what happens to those who defy the Council." They dragged Elena away. She did not struggle. She kept her head high as they led her through corridors of living crystal, down to the ancient chamber where the Council had executed rebels for millennia. The flame spire stood at the center, a pillar of contained starfire that burned at temperatures that could vaporize matter in seconds. They bound her to the pillar with gravity restraints. Cameras focused on her face. Across the galaxy, billions watched. In the Earth Assembly, they watched. On human colonies scattered among the stars, they watched. In a military vessel orbiting Proxima Centauri, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo watched her wife prepare to die. Elena closed her eyes. She thought of Sarah's smile. She thought of Maya's laughter. She thought of Earth, blue and green and beautiful, floating in the darkness of space. She thought of all the humans who would live after her, who would build and dream and reach for the stars no matter what the council did. "I love you, Sarah," she whispered, knowing the cameras would not catch it but saying it anyway. "Take care of our girl, and make them pay." Thelzerin gave the order. The flame consumed her. It lasted only seconds, but those seconds were broadcast across every inhabited world in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had made their statement. They had shown their power. They had reminded the younger species who ruled the stars. They thought they had won. They had no idea what they had started. In the Earth Assembly, 3 billion people watched Elena Vasquez burn. They watched in silence. They watched in horror. They watched in rage. And 48 hours later, they would give their answer. The Earth Assembly building sat on the shores of Lake Geneva, a structure of glass and steel that reflected the mountains beyond. For 48 hours, it had been silent. The representatives from every nation, every colony, every orbital station had gathered, but no one had spoken. They had watched Elena's execution on repeat. They had seen her burn. They had heard her final words. Now Admiral James Chen stood at the central podium. He was 70 years old, gray-haired and scarred from 3 decades of military service. He had fought in the colony wars. He had negotiated the Mars Treaty. He had seen humanity at its worst and its best. And now he stood before the assembly with a tablet in his hands and murder in his eyes. "Members of the assembly," he began, his voice rough. "For 2 days, we have mourned. We have wept. We have asked ourselves how this could happen, how a diplomatic mission could end with our ambassador burned alive on galactic television, how the council that claims to represent justice and peace could commit such an atrocity." He tapped his tablet, and holographic displays materialized above every seat in the chamber. Graphs, charts, communications intercepts, medical reports. "I am here to tell you how," Chen continued. "For the past 6 months, military intelligence has been investigating the accidents that plagued our colonies. The plague that killed 800 people on New Vancouver. The reactor failure on Io Station that killed 200 more. The asteroid that destroyed the farming settlement on Kepler 442. We were told these were accidents. Unfortunate coincidences. Bad luck." He looked around the chamber, meeting eyes. They were not accidents. They were murder. A murmur ran through the assembly. Chen raised his voice. "The plague on New Vancouver? It was a Kretek bioweapon specifically engineered to target human respiratory systems. We found the genetic markers. We traced the delivery system. It was released by a Crytek science team that visited the colony 3 weeks before the outbreak, claiming to study local bacteria." The holographic displays shifted, showing microscopic images of viral structures, complex genetic sequences, damning communications logs. "The reactor on Io? Sabotaged. We recovered fragments of a S-slick neural interface from the wreckage. Someone accessed the control system remotely and overrode the safety protocols. The asteroid that hit Kepler? It did not drift. It was pushed by a Valorian mining drone that was reported lost 2 months before the impact." Chen's hands gripped the podium hard enough that his knuckles turned white. "The Galactic Council has been systematically trying to destroy us. They have been killing our people, destroying our infrastructure, and blaming it on human incompetence. They want us gone. They want us dead." And when Ambassador Vasquez confronted them with the evidence, when she demanded justice, they killed her to make an example. Representative Liu Wei from the Asian Coalition stood. She was a small woman with steel in her spine. "Admiral Chen, these are serious accusations. If we act on this, we are talking about war with the entire Galactic Council. We are outnumbered, outgunned. They have technology we cannot match. They have alliances we cannot break. Starting a war with them would be suicide." "It would be suicide to do nothing," Chen shot back. "They are already killing us. They are just doing it slowly, quietly, so the rest of the galaxy does not notice. But now they have made it public. They have shown us what they think of humanity. They burned our ambassador alive. If we do not respond, what message does that send? That humans can be murdered without consequence. That we will bow and scrape and accept whatever they do to us. "What are you proposing?" asked Representative Okafor from the African Union. His face was grim. "That we declare war on a coalition that has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years?" "Yes," said a new voice. Every head turned. At the back of the chamber, the doors had opened. Fleet Admiral Sarah Okonkwo walked down the center aisle. She wore her full dress uniform, black and silver with rows of medals on her chest. Her face was carved from stone. Her eyes were red from crying, but now they burned with something colder than grief. "Yes," she repeated, reaching the podium. Chen stepped aside for her. "I propose we declare war, not because we want to, not because we think we can win easily, but because the alternative is extinction." Sarah activated her own display. It showed a map of human space. Red dots marked every colony, every station, every outpost. "We have 67 colonies outside the Sol system, 240 stations, 30 billion humans living beyond Earth. The Council has already attacked 20 of our sites. If we do nothing, they will attack 20 more, then 20 more. They will not stop until we are extinct or enslaved." She changed the display. Now it showed military projections, force estimates, tactical analyses. Can we win? Maybe. Maybe not. The Council has more ships, better technology, and 10,000 years of experience. But they have weaknesses. They are complacent. They have not fought a real war in millennia. They rely on fear and reputation more than actual strength. And they have made enemies. Dozens of species suffer under their rule. Species who would love to see the Council fall. Representative Torres from South America spoke up. "Even if everything you say is true, Admiral, you are talking about a war that could last decades, generations. How many humans will die? How many worlds will burn?" Sarah's voice was quiet, but hard as diamond. "My wife just burned. Do you think I do not know the cost of war? Do you think I have not counted the price? But Elena's last words were not about peace. They were not about negotiation. She told us to make them pay. She told us to fight, and she was right." She looked around the chamber at the faces of the representatives who would decide humanity's future. "The Council thinks we are weak. They think we are cowards. They think burning one ambassador will make 3 billion humans fall in line. They do not understand us. They do not know our history. They do not know that humans are at our most dangerous when we are cornered, when we have nothing left to lose, when someone we love has been murdered." Sarah's voice rose. "They want to see what humanity does when pushed. I will show them. We will recall every civilian from Council space. We will activate every reserve ship in our fleet. We will mobilize every soldier, every pilot, every engineer. And we will teach the Galactic Council something they have forgotten, that peace maintained by oppression is not peace. It is temporary surrender, and humanity does not surrender." The chamber was silent. Sarah looked at Chen, who nodded once. Then she looked back at the assembly. "I call for a vote," she said. "Do we accept the Council's authority and die slowly? Or do we fight back and die on our feet? Choose." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Representative Liu stood. "The Asian Coalition votes for war." Representative Okafor stood. "The African Union votes for war." One by one they stood. The European Federation, the American Alliance, the Martian Collective, the Belt Confederacy, every nation, every colony, every voice. The vote was unanimous. Chen stepped back to the podium. "Then by the authority vested in me by the Earth Assembly and the Colonial Congress, I hereby declare that a state of war exists between humanity and the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, all human civilians in Council space are to be recalled. All diplomatic relations are severed. All treaties are void." He looked directly at the cameras that broadcast the session across human space and beyond. To the Galactic Council, you wanted to make an example of Ambassador Elena Vasquez. You wanted to show us our place. Message received. Now here is our answer. We are coming. We are bringing every ship, every weapon, every ounce of rage and grief and human stubbornness we possess. And we will not stop until you have paid for every drop of blood you have spilled. Sarah stepped forward again. I am taking personal command of First Fleet. Our objective is simple. Make the Council regret waking the sleeping giant. All commanders are to report to their assigned vessels within 6 hours. Protocol Ragnarok is now active. That is all. The assembly erupted. Not in argument, but in grim purpose. Representatives rushed to communicate with their governments. Military officers scrambled to their posts. Across human space, the message spread like wildfire. Earth had declared war. On Nexus Prime, the Council received the news with amusement. Thel Soren laughed when he heard it. The humans think they can fight us? Let them come. We will destroy their fleets and humble them properly this time. But Consul Vexthar, the sleek representative, did not laugh. He had studied humans. He had read their history. He knew about their world wars, their religious conflicts, their endless cycle of violence and recovery. He knew what they were capable of when they believed themselves righteous. We have made a mistake, he hissed quietly to his aide. We should have left them alone. His aide, young and confident, flicked his tongue dismissively. They are primitives. What can they possibly do to us? Vexathar looked at him with ancient eyes. That is what the Kretek said about the Valorians 10,000 years ago. That is what the Rothans said about the Kretek. That is what every empire in history has said about the people they underestimated. And history shows what happens next. What happens? Vexthar turned away. Fire, blood, and the fall of empires. Across the galaxy, human ships began to move. Carrier groups assembled at rally points. Marine divisions boarded transports. Weapons factories went to 24-hour production. In the deep black between the stars, hidden shipyards that the Council did not know existed came alive with activity. Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of her flagship, the ECS Indomitable, and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there was the world where Elena had died. Somewhere out there was the Council that had killed her. Navigation, she said quietly. Plot a course for Proxima Station. We start there. We defend our own first, then we take the fight to them. Course plotted, Admiral. All ships, Sarah broadcast to her fleet. This is Okonkwo. 48 hours ago, they burned our ambassador. They thought it would break us. They were wrong. We are not broken. We are not afraid. We are angry. And we are coming. For Elena. For all the humans they have killed. For everyone who has suffered under their rule. Jump in 30 seconds. Make ready. The countdown began. 30, 20, 10, 0. The fleet vanished into jump space, leaving only ripples in the fabric of reality. The war had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Proxima Station orbited Proxima Centauri like a steel flower, its 6 arms reaching outward, each one housing thousands of humans. It was humanity's first major deep space installation, built 30 years ago when humans first learned to jump between stars. Now it stood as the primary military base for human forces outside the Sol system. And now it was about to become a battlefield. Commander Marcus Webb stood in the station's command center, watching the tactical display with growing dread. Red markers filled the screen, each one representing a Council warship. They had been appearing for the past hour, dropping out of jump space in perfect formation. The Eternal Armada, they called themselves. A fleet that had crushed 20 rebellions over 10,000 years. A fleet that had never known defeat. Final count, Lieutenant? Marcus asked. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, no relation to Admiral James Chen, checked her instruments. 247 vessels, sir. Mix of Crytek bioships, Valorian dreadnoughts, and Rothon heavy cruisers. They outnumber us 20-1. Any word from First Fleet? Still 2 hours out, sir. Admiral Okonkwo is pushing the engines, but they cannot jump any closer without risking a collision. Marcus nodded slowly. He was 45 years old, a career officer who had spent most of his life training for wars that never came. Now the war was here, and it was bigger than anything he had imagined. He looked around the command center at the faces of his crew. Young faces, mostly. People who had joined the military for education benefits, for adventure, for the chance to see the stars. Not for this. "All right," he said quietly. "Send a message to all civilians. Evacuation pods are to launch immediately. Women and children first, then essential personnel, everyone else to defensive positions." "Sir," Chen protested, "if the civilians evacuate, the Council will know we are preparing to fight. They might attack before First Fleet arrives." "They are going to attack anyway, Lieutenant. This is not a negotiation. They came here to destroy us, to make another example. I will not let civilians die because we tried to pretend this was something other than what it is." He turned to his tactical officer, a grizzled veteran named Rodriguez. "What do we have to fight with?" Rodriguez pulled up the inventory. 12 frigates, 4 destroyers, 2 cruisers, station defense platforms with railguns and missile batteries, and 48 fighters, most of them training models. "Against 247 warships that have been fighting for 10,000 years, Marcus said. "We are dead." "Yes, sir." "Good. Then we have nothing to lose. Get me a line to the fleet commanders, and send a message to engineering. I need to talk to Dr. Yuki." 5 minutes later, Marcus stood in a conference room with holographic projections of his ship captains and Dr. Kenji Yuki, the station's chief science officer. Yuki was a thin man with wild hair and the distracted look of someone who spent more time thinking about physics than people. "Commanders," Marcus began, "the Council is here to destroy this station and everyone on it. They have overwhelming numbers and superior technology. If we fight them conventionally, we will last maybe 20 minutes before they tear us apart. So we are not going to fight them conventionally." Captain Rivera of the destroyer, Defiant, spoke up. "Sir, with respect, how else can we fight them? We don't have the firepower to penetrate their shields." Marcus smiled grimly. "No, but we have something they don't." "What's that, sir?" "Desperation. And a star." He gestured to Dr. Yuki, who brought up a schematic of Proxima Centauri. The red dwarf star glowed in the center of the display, its surface churning with magnetic storms. "Dr. Yuki, explain." Yuki pushed his glasses up his nose nervously. "Proxima Centauri is a flare star. It regularly produces massive solar flares, releases of magnetic energy that can be detected from Earth. 3 months ago, we installed deep-core monitoring stations to study the star's magnetic field. We did this for scientific research. But the stations also include powerful magnetic resonators designed to take precise measurements of field fluctuations. And these resonators," Marcus said, "can do more than measure. They can influence. Isn't that right, Doctor?" Yuki swallowed. "Theoretically, yes. If we overload all 6 resonators simultaneously, we could trigger a cascading magnetic instability in the star's corona. This would cause a directional flare, a focused release of plasma and radiation." Captain Torres of the cruiser Hammer looked skeptical. "How focused are we talking?" "Focused enough to channel it toward a specific region of space," Yuki said. "If the Council fleet positions itself where I think they will, in standard siege formation around the station, we could potentially hit them with the equivalent of a point-blank stellar eruption." "And what happens to the station?" asked Captain Lee. "The station would be destroyed," Yuki admitted. The flare would vaporize everything within 2 million kilometers, including us. The room fell silent. Then Marcus spoke. Unless we evacuate everyone first, put them in ships and get them clear, then trigger the flare remotely. We would lose the station, Rivera said. The station is metal and wires. It can be rebuilt. The people cannot. Marcus looked at each captain. Here is what I am proposing. We evacuate all non-essential personnel. The civilian transports jump to safety. The military ships take up positions behind the station, using it as a shield. We send a surrender message to the council, make them think we are beaten. They will want to gloat. They will want to come close to watch us kneel, and when they are in position, we trigger the flare. They will see it coming, Torres objected. Their sensors will detect the magnetic buildup. Not if we mask it, Yuki said, getting excited despite the circumstances. We have been pumping electromagnetic interference into the local space for weeks, part of our sensor research. To their instruments, it will just look like background noise. They will not know what is happening until the flare hits them, and by then, it will be too late. Rodriguez frowned. This is insane, sir. You are talking about using a star as a weapon. Even if it works, even if we survive, the Council will see this as the worst kind of violation. Using stellar engineering as warfare? They will paint us as monsters. They already did that, Marcus said flatly. They burned our ambassador alive. They have been killing our people for months. If they think we are monsters now, so be it. I would rather be a living monster than a dead saint. He straightened. I know what I am asking. This plan means sacrificing Proxima Station. It means fighting in a way that no one has fought before. But it also means we might actually win. We might save lives. We might buy time for First Fleet to arrive. So I am putting it to a vote. All in favor? One by one, every captain raised their hand. Then let's get to work. We have 2 hours before they move into position. Lieutenant Chen, begin the evacuation. Captain Rivera, your destroyer will coordinate the civilian transports. Everyone else, take your ships to the far side of the station. Dr. Yuki, start the resonator charging sequence. Make it look like a normal power fluctuation. The conference ended. People scattered to their tasks. Marcus stood alone for a moment, looking at the holographic image of Proxima Centauri. He thought about his daughter on Mars. He thought about Elena Vasquez burning. He thought about all the humans who would die in this war. Then he pushed the thoughts away and got to work. 2 hours later, the Eternal Armada moved into position. The Council commander, a Valorian named Pelthoran, watched Proxima Station on his view screen with satisfaction. The human military ships had retreated. The civilian transports were fleeing. The station itself hung in space like a wounded animal. They are beaten, his tactical officer reported. The human commander is requesting terms of surrender. Pelthoran smiled. This was too easy. The humans had fought in their civil wars, yes, but they had never faced a true galactic power. They were learning their place. Bring us closer, he ordered. I want to see their faces when they surrender. Record it. The Council will want to broadcast this across the galaxy. The Armada moved forward, ships arranging themselves in a sphere around the station. Perfect formation, perfect discipline. The pride of 10,000 years of military tradition. On the far side of Proxima Station, hidden by the bulk of the installation, Marcus Webb watched the Council ships settling into position. They were close now, very close. So close that they blocked the star itself, casting shadows across the station's hull. All ships report ready. Sir, Chen said, civilian transports have jumped clear. All personnel are evacuated except for our skeleton crews. Dr. Yuki? The scientist's voice came over the comm. Resonators are fully charged. I am in the control bunker, ready to initiate on your command. Sir, I should mention that we have never tested this at full power. There is a 30% chance the resonators will simply explode without affecting the star at all. And a 70% chance we turn the Council's flagship into vapor, Marcus said. I will take those odds. All ships, prepare to jump on my mark. Full burn away from the star the instant we drop out of jump. We need to be 10 million kilometers clear before the flare hits. He took a breath. On his screen, Pelthorin's face appeared, smug and certain of victory. Human Commander, you will stand down your defenses and prepare to be boarded. The Council will take control of this station. Your ships will be impounded. Your personnel will be processed and returned to Earth, where your government will be held accountable for its rebellion. Marcus smiled. Commander Pelthorin, I have a message from humanity. We received your message when you burned Ambassador Vasquez. Here is ours. He cut the transmission and spoke one word. Now! Dr. Yuki activated the resonators. Deep in the star's corona, 6 points of magnetic resonance flared to life. They pulled at the star's natural field lines, twisting them, amplifying them, creating an instability that cascaded through layers of superheated plasma. The star responded the way stars do when their magnetic fields are disrupted. It exploded, not the whole star. Just a directed eruption, a focused beam of plasma and radiation that burst from Proxima Centauri's surface like a bullet from a gun. It moved at a significant fraction of light speed, a wall of fire that could melt planets. It hit the Eternal Armada 3 seconds later. The Council ship's shields, designed to stop energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, lasted less than a second against the full fury of a stellar flare. The shields collapsed. The hulls vaporized. 200 ships vanished in an instant, simply ceasing to exist as matter converted to plasma and scattered atoms. The human ships jumped the moment Yuki triggered the resonators. They appeared 10 million kilometers away, far enough to be safe but close enough to watch. Marcus stood on his bridge and watched the tactical display as red icons blinked out. Dozens. Hundreds. In 5 seconds, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy was gone. Only 3 ships escaped. 3 ships out of 247, their captains reacting fast enough to jump before the flare hit them. Marcus sat down slowly. Around him, his bridge crew stood in stunned silence. "My God," Chen whispered. "We did it. We actually did it." Rodriguez checked his scanners. "I am reading massive debris fields, some radiation, but dissipating fast. The star is stabilizing. And, sir, I have First Fleet on sensors. They just arrived." On the main screen, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo's face appeared. She looked at the debris field, at the 3 fleeing Council ships, at the empty space where Proxima Station had been. "Commander Webb," she said quietly, "report." "Station destroyed as planned, Admiral. All personnel evacuated safely." "Eternal Armada destroyed. 3 enemy ships escaped. No human casualties. Mission accomplished." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were wet. "Elena would have been proud. You just changed the entire war. That armada was supposed to make an example of us. Instead, you made an example of them." She straightened. "All ships, break formation. I want those 3 survivors hunted down before they can report back. Commander Webb, bring your ships to Rendezvous Point Delta. You have earned a rest." Marcus nodded. Then he stood and addressed his crew. "We just did something no one has ever done. We fought the Council and won. And we are going to keep winning. For Elena. For all of us. This is just the beginning." Across the galaxy, the 3 surviving Council ships arrived at Nexus Prime with their impossible news. The Eternal Armada, invincible for 10 millennia, was gone, destroyed by a species that had barely learned to walk among the stars. The Council scrambled to understand what had happened. They called emergency sessions. They demanded explanations. They sent more ships, more threats, more demands. But humanity had learned a lesson from Elena's death. Words meant nothing. Only force mattered, only action counted, and humanity had plenty of both. 6 months after the destruction of the Eternal Armada, the war had spread like fire across the galaxy. On paper, humanity was losing. The Council controlled thousands of systems. Humanity controlled maybe 60. The Council had fleets that numbered in the thousands. Humanity had hundreds. The Council had technology refined over millennia. Humanity had improvisation and rage. But the numbers lied. In the Strategic Command Room on Earth, Admiral James Chen stood before a galactic map that glowed with colored lights. Blue for human-controlled space, red for Council territory, and green. Dozens and dozens of green dots spreading through Council space like a disease. Each green dot was a rebellion. Each one was a species that had suffered under Council rule and now saw their chance for freedom. "Status report," Chen said to his staff. Colonel Martinez pulled up the latest intelligence. The Vrin Collective just declared independence from Council authority. That makes 43 species who have either rebelled or withdrawn support for the Council. The Crytek homeworlds are facing supply shortages because the Holland refused to transport goods for them anymore. 3 Valorian governors have been assassinated by local resistance movements, and our strike teams have hit 18 Council facilities in the past month alone. Casualties? Theirs or ours? Ours. Martinez's face darkened. "Hi, sir. The Council is adapting. They have learned to expect our tactics. Every raid costs us more ships than the last. We are winning, but we are bleeding. Badly." Chen nodded. He had known this would happen. Wars of liberation were never clean. And Admiral Okonkwo's fleet? Currently hitting supply depots in the Outer Rim. Last report, they destroyed a slick ammunition dump and rescued 500 Tellan slaves. She is heading to the Meridian system next. Tell her to be careful. The Council is setting traps now. They want her dead almost as much as they wanted Elena dead. Martinez hesitated. "Sir, speaking of Elena, there has been a development. The Council has issued a statement. They are calling the war a human atrocity. They are showing footage of destroyed Council outposts, dead soldiers, burning stations. They are painting us as the aggressors." Chen laughed bitterly. "Of course they are. We are winning. So now we are the bad guys. What else do they say? They are demanding we surrender and stand trial for war crimes. They are threatening economic sanctions against any species that trades with us. And they are planning something big, sir. Intelligence suggests a major operation against one of our core colonies." "Which one?" "Unknown. But it will be soon. Within a week." Chen stared at the map. 43 species in rebellion. Hundreds of human ships scattered across the galaxy. And somewhere out there, the Council was planning its revenge. "Get me a secure line to all fleet commanders," he said. "And send a message to our allies. Tell them the Council is desperate. Tell them we are close to breaking them. Tell them to hold on just a little longer." On the far side of the galaxy, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched a Council supply station burn. It had taken 2 hours to crack the defenses. They had lost 3 ships doing it, but now the station's fuel reserves were cooking off in brilliant explosions, and 500 Tellan slaves were safe on her transport ships. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "we are receiving a message from the Tellan captives. They want to thank you personally." "Patch it through." A hologram appeared. A Tellan, a small furry species with large eyes, bowed deeply. "Admiral Okonkwo, I am Speaker Vel. On behalf of my people, I thank you. We have been slaves for 3 generations. The Council told us there was no hope of freedom, but you proved them wrong. You showed us that the powerful can be resisted, that tyrants can bleed." Sarah felt a lump in her throat. This was why they fought. Not for territory, not for resources, for moments like this, for freedom. "Speaker Vel, you and your people are welcome to join us at our forward base. We can provide medical care, food, and transport to any world you choose. We choose to fight, Vel said firmly. My people may be small, but we are many, and we are tired of being victims. If you will have us, we want to join your fleet. Teach us to fly your ships. Teach us to fight. We want to help free others as you freed us. Sarah looked at the small alien with new respect. Vel, the Council has already made too many enemies. We would be honored to fight alongside the Tellan people. Welcome to the rebellion. The transmission ended. Sarah's executive officer, Commander Park, raised an eyebrow. Are we really going to arm and train former slaves to fight the Council? They have no military experience. They will get themselves killed. So did we once, Sarah said. 300 years ago, humans were barely off their own planet. Now look at us. Everyone starts somewhere, Commander, and I would rather die beside brave amateurs than live under cruel experts. She looked at the burning station one more time. Set course for Meridian System. Intelligence says there is a prison camp there, holding political prisoners from a dozen species. Let's go introduce the Council to some more humans who don't know their place. In the Meridian System, the Council had learned from its mistakes. The prison camp was not lightly defended. 3 heavy cruisers orbited the planet. Fighter patrols swept the space constantly. Ground-based defenses could crack a battleship's hull. And the prisoners were kept in a facility deep underground, impossible to reach with orbital bombardment. When Sarah's fleet arrived, they found a trap waiting. "Multiple contacts!" the sensor officer shouted. "Enemy fleet dropping out of jump! 60 ships, heavy composition, flanking positions!" Sarah's hands gripped her armrests. The Council had predicted her target. They had baited the trap with prisoners and waited for her to walk into it. "All ships, evasive maneuvers, launch fighters, target their command vessels first." The battle was chaos. Council ships had better shields, better weapons, better armor. But human ships fought like cornered animals. They used the planet's gravity to slingshot past cruisers, firing missiles as they went. They launched electronic warfare drones that jammed Council communications. They sent fighter squadrons on suicide runs to knock out targeting systems. Sarah's flagship took 3 direct hits. The shields collapsed. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12, casualties mounting. "Admiral, we are losing!" Park shouted over the alarms. "We need to retreat!" "Not without those prisoners," Sarah said through gritted teeth. "Commander Webb, are you in position?" On the far side of the planet, Marcus Webb's destroyer emerged from behind a moon. He had jumped in separately, following a plan Sarah had made days ago. While the Council fleet focused on the main battle, Webb's small task force had slipped past the orbital defenses. "In position, Admiral. Beginning landing operation now." His Marines dropped from orbit in armored pods, slamming into the ground around the prison facility like meteors. They cut through the outer defenses with plasma torches. They fought through automated turrets and Crytek guards. They reached the underground levels where the prisoners were kept. Captain Lisa Torres led the Marine assault. She was 30 years old, born on Mars, trained on Europa. She had never expected to be breaking into alien prisons and starting revolutions. But here she was. "Blow the door," she ordered. The shaped charges detonated. The reinforced door crumpled. Inside, thousands of prisoners stared at the humans in shock. They were from a dozen species. Some were political dissidents. Some were religious leaders who had spoken against the Council. Some were just people who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. "Anyone who wants to leave, follow us!" Torres shouted. "We are getting you out of here!" They came. Thousands of them, flooding toward the exit. Torres's Marines held the corridor, fighting off guards who tried to stop the escape. Above, Webb's ships descended to provide covering fire. In orbit, Sarah's fleet was dying. Half her ships were crippled or destroyed. The Council was closing in for the kill. But then the Tellan volunteers, the former slaves she had rescued days ago, did something no one expected. They rammed their small transport ship directly into a council cruiser's engine section. The explosion tore the cruiser in half, debris scattered across space. And in the moment of confusion that followed, Sarah's surviving ships broke through the council line and jumped to safety. Marcus Webb's task force followed seconds later, their cargo holds packed with freed prisoners. The council fleet was left behind, victorious in the sense that they had destroyed many human ships, but defeated in the sense that the prisoners were gone, and one of their cruisers was destroyed by a cargo ship. Sarah's fleet regrouped at a hidden outpost in the asteroid belt of an uninhabited system. The damage report was grim. 14 ships lost. 800 crew dead. 3,000 wounded for the rescue of 6,000 prisoners. But those prisoners spread across the galaxy, telling their story, telling how humans had come for them, how humans had fought impossible odds to set them free, how humans treated them not as tools or slaves, but as people worthy of rescue. More rebellions erupted, more species withdrew support from the Council. More volunteers joined the human fleet, bringing their own ships, their own anger, their own desire for freedom. The Council called emergency sessions. They debated, they argued, and finally, they decided to make one more example. They chose the agricultural colony of New Nairobi. New Nairobi was a peaceful world. 3 million humans, mostly farmers and their families. No military installation, no strategic value. Just fields of wheat and corn, orchards of fruit trees, small towns connected by dirt roads. It was the kind of place people went to escape the chaos of war, to raise children in safety, to dream of a future where humans and aliens could live side by side in peace. The Council fleet arrived without warning. 4 battleships. No demands, no negotiations, no chance to surrender. They opened fire from orbit. The kinetic strikes hit like meteors. Cities vaporized in seconds. The farm fields burned. The forests became ash. 3 million people died in 6 hours of systematic bombardment. The Council broadcast it live. They wanted the galaxy to see what happened to those who defied them. They wanted humans to know that rebellion had a price. Sarah Okonkwo watched from her flagship, 3-star systems away, helpless to intervene. She watched her people burn. She watched children die. She watched New Nairobi turn from a green world into a blackened rock. When it was over, she sat in her command chair and wept. Around her, her crew wept. Across human space, 3 billion people wept. And then they stopped weeping and started planning. The Council had made a mistake. They had thought that destroying New Nairobi would break human morale. They thought it would make humans afraid. They were wrong. Sarah called a conference of all human fleet commanders. Her face appeared on screens across the fleet, and what the officers saw there was not grief, not fear, not doubt. What they saw was murder. New Nairobi was my mistake, she said, her voice cold and hard. I thought if we fought carefully, if we targeted only military installations, if we showed restraint, the Council would eventually negotiate. I was wrong. They will never negotiate. They will never show mercy. They will never stop until we are extinct or enslaved. She leaned forward. So here is what we are going to do. No more restraint. No more carefully targeted strikes. No more playing by their rules. They want to see what happens when they push humanity too far? I am going to show them. We are going to hit them with everything we have. Every weapon, every tactic, every dirty trick we can think of. We are going to make them wish they had never heard the name Elena Vasquez. We are going to make them wish they had left New Nairobi alone. We are going to teach them what humanity looks like when all the rules are gone. She stood. I am taking First Fleet to Nexus Prime. We are going to the Council's homeworld. And we are not going to negotiate. We are not going to demand surrender. We are going to make them pay for every drop of blood they have spilled. For Elena. For New Nairobi. For every human, every alien, every living being that has suffered under their rule. Who is with me? Every commander stood, Every officer, every soldier. The answer was unanimous. The final battle was coming. And the galaxy was about to learn that there is a difference between fighting humans and making them your enemy. The Council had just learned which they had done, and they would regret it for the rest of their very short future. Nexus Prime was the oldest inhabited world in the galaxy. It had been the Council's capital for 10,000 years, a planet covered in cities of crystallized light and towers that reached towards space. 5 billion beings lived on its surface, the Council's greatest minds, their most powerful military commanders, their ruling elite. It was supposed to be untouchable, the most heavily defended world in known space. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo's fleet dropped out of jump space at the edge of the Nexus system with 400 ships. Half of them were human vessels, battered and repaired a dozen times over. The other half were contributed by the rebellion, ships from 40 species who had joined humanity's cause. Tellan scouts, Vryn destroyers, Halen carriers, species who had been slaves or subjects or simply ignored, now united under one purpose: to end the Council's reign. "All ships, battle formation," Sarah commanded. "Fighter wings, launch. Marine divisions, prepare for ground assault. This is it. We end this today." On Nexus Prime, the Council scrambled to respond. They had known an attack was coming. They had been preparing for weeks. Their orbital defenses were legendary. Battle stations the size of moons, shield generators that could stop a meteor storm, fighter wings that numbered in the thousands. Thel Soren, the elder magistrate who had ordered Elena's execution, stood in the council chamber watching tactical displays. Around him, the other council members argued and shouted. "How did they get so many ships?" demanded Stone Who Remembers, the Rothan representative. "Our intelligence said they had fewer than 200 vessels left." "They have been building in secret," hissed Consul Vexthar, "using captured technology. And they have allies now. The species we ruled, the ones we thought were broken, they have joined the humans. This is not just a war against Earth anymore. This is a rebellion of the entire lower galaxy." "Then we crush it," Thelcerin said coldly. "We have crushed rebellions before. We will crush this one. Activate all defense grids, launch the reserve fleets, and ready the planetary shields. They will not reach the surface." The battle began. Human fighters screamed toward the orbital defenses, weaving through weapon fire that lit up space like a fireworks display. They died by the dozens, but for every fighter that fell, 2 more took its place, and they kept coming. Sarah's capital ships pushed forward, taking hit after hit on their shields. The flagship Indomitable shuddered with each impact. Damage reports flooded in, hull breaches, shield failures, casualties mounting. "Admiral, we cannot sustain this," Commander Park shouted. "Their defenses are too strong." "Then we break them," Sarah said. "All ships, activate Protocol Omega." Protocol Omega was humanity's final desperate gamble. Every ship in the fleet had been equipped with experimental jump drives, modified to allow micro-jumps of just a few thousand kilometers. It was dangerous. It was unpredictable. Ships might collide with debris or appear inside other vessels. But it was the only way through the Council's defenses. The fleet vanished. 1 second, they were millions of kilometers away. The next, they were inside the defense perimeter, appearing right next to battle stations and shield generators. Point-blank range, too close for the automated defenses to track effectively. The battle turned into a knife fight. Human Marines boarded battle stations using breach pods. They fought through corridors in zero gravity, using weapons designed for ship-to-ship combat in close quarters. Plasma cutters, magnetic grenades, kinetic rifles that could punch through bulkheads. Captain Lisa Torres led one of the assault teams. Her target was the primary shield generator for the Northern Hemisphere. She and 50 Marines fought their way through 3 levels of Crytek defenders. "Plant the charges," she ordered, laying down covering fire. "We have 2 minutes before reinforcements arrive." Her demolition expert, a kid from Luna named Jackson, worked frantically to set the shaped charges. These shields are stronger than anything we have seen. I don't know if we have enough explosives. Use all of them, Torres said. We won't need them for the trip home. Jackson looked at her. He understood. This was a one-way mission. They were not planning to escape. He nodded and set the charges. 30 seconds, Captain. Torres activated her comm. All teams fall back to the breach points. Jackson is about to ruin someone's day. They ran. Behind them, the charges detonated. The explosion tore through the shield generator's power core, setting off a chain reaction. The northern hemisphere's shields flickered and died. In space, Sarah saw the gap in the defenses. All ships concentrate fire on the northern quadrant. Troop transports begin landing operations. Hundreds of transports dove toward the planet's surface. Council fighters tried to stop them, but the human escorts were fierce. Ships traded fire at point-blank range. Vessels collided and exploded. The space around Nexus Prime became a graveyard of burning metal. But the transports got through. They landed outside the Council's main administrative complex, a tower that reached 30 kilometers into the sky. Human Marines poured out, accompanied by Tellan scouts, Vryn heavy troops, and a dozen other species. They were met by Rothan ground forces and Kretek bio-soldiers. The battle for Nexus Prime had reached the surface. In the council chamber, Thelsoren watched the fighting with growing horror. The humans were inside the city. They were fighting in the streets. This was impossible. No one had ever breached Nexus Prime's defenses. No one had ever brought war to the council's doorstep. "We must evacuate," urged one of his advisors. "Your safety is paramount, Elder Magistrate." "I will not run from primitives," Thelsoren hissed. "This is our world, our seat of power. We will hold it." But even as he spoke, he heard the sounds of battle getting closer. Explosions, weapon fire, the screams of the dying. The door to the council chamber exploded inward. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo walked through the smoke, flanked by 20 Marines in full combat armor. Her uniform was torn and burned. Blood ran from a cut on her forehead, but her eyes were clear and cold. "Thelsoren," she said quietly, "do you remember me?" The elder magistrate drew himself up, trying to maintain dignity. "You are Admiral Okonkwo, the terrorist leader." "I am the widow of the woman you murdered," Sarah corrected. "Elena Vasquez, you burned her alive and broadcast it across the galaxy. Do you remember why you did it?" She refused to obey council authority. She encouraged rebellion. She had to be made an example. Sarah nodded slowly. "An example? Yes. That is what you said. You wanted to show the galaxy what happens to those who defy you. You wanted to frighten us into submission. Tell me, Thelsoren, how did that work out for you?" She gestured at the burning city visible through the chamber's windows. "Your orbital defenses are destroyed. Your fleet is scattered. Your allies have abandoned you. And I am standing in your throne room with enough firepower to level this entire complex. You made an example of Elena. Now I am going to make an example of you." Thelsoren's face twisted. "You cannot win. Even if you kill me, even if you destroy the council, you cannot rule the galaxy. You are too few, too weak, too human. The galaxy will never accept you as leaders." "You are right," Sarah said. "We do not want to rule the galaxy. We just want to end your rule." "There is a difference." She raised her hand, and one of her Marines stepped forward with a data tablet. "Under the authority granted to me by the United Earth Assembly and the Free Species Coalition, I am placing you under arrest for crimes against sapient species. Specifically, the unauthorized execution of a diplomatic representative, the genocide of New Nairobi, and approximately 10,000 years of oppression, slavery, and systematic brutality." Thelsoren laughed. "You cannot arrest me. I am the elder magistrate of the Galactic Council. I am beyond your pathetic laws." "No," Sarah said, "you are not. Because we are not using our laws. We are using yours. The very same council legal code you used to justify Elena's execution. The code that says those who commit crimes against sapient beings must be punished. The code that prescribes specific penalties for specific crimes. She pulled up the tablet and read from it. According to Council Statute 773, subsection 12, the penalty for the unauthorized execution of a diplomatic representative is death. According to Statute 892, the penalty for genocide is death by purification flame. Your own laws, Thelsorin, your own justice. The elder magistrate's face went pale. You would not dare. I am the leader of the council. If you execute me, you will be no better than us. You will be murderers. Sarah stared at him for a long moment. In her mind, she saw Elena burning. She saw New Nairobi die. She saw all the humans and aliens who had suffered under council rule. She felt the weight of all those deaths, all that pain, all that injustice. You are right, she said finally. If I execute you, I become what you are. A killer who uses the law as an excuse for murder, and I will not do that. I will not let your evil turn me into another version of you. She nodded to her Marines. Take him into custody. He will stand trial before representatives of all the species he has oppressed. He will face justice, real justice, not the kind he dispensed. And then he will spend the rest of his life in a prison cell, thinking about all the people he killed. That is his punishment, to live with what he has done. Thelsorin was dragged away, still protesting, still threatening. The council chamber fell silent. Commander Park stepped forward. Admiral, we are receiving reports from across the city. Council forces are surrendering. The leadership is asking for terms. Terms are simple, Sarah said. Immediate cessation of all hostilities, release of all political prisoners, dismantling of the Council's central authority. Each species will govern itself. There will be a new galactic assembly with equal representation for all. No more masters, no more slaves, just people trying to live together in peace. And if they refuse? Sarah looked out at the burning city. Then we keep fighting, for as long as it takes, until they understand that the old way is over. But the council did not refuse. They were broken. Their fleet was destroyed. Their capital was occupied. Their authority was gone. One by one, the council members surrendered. The war was over. 3 months later, Sarah stood at Elena's memorial on Earth. It was a simple monument, a wall of names. Elena's name was at the top, but beneath it were thousands more. All the humans who had died in the war, all the aliens who had fought for freedom, all the innocent people who had suffered. We won, Sarah said quietly to Elena's hologram, a recording that played whenever someone activated the memorial. We beat them. We ended the Council's rule. We freed the galaxy. But the cost was so high. 3 million dead on New Nairobi, thousands more in battles across the stars. I wonder sometimes if you would be proud of what we did, if you would approve of the way we won. Elena's hologram smiled. It was an old recording, made years before her death. If you are listening to this, it means I am gone. And if I am gone, it probably means I died trying to do the right thing. That is okay. I have never been afraid of dying for what I believe in. What I am afraid of is living in a galaxy where justice is just a word, where the powerful can hurt the weak without consequence, where good people stand by and do nothing. The hologram paused. So, if you are wondering whether I would be proud, the answer is yes. Always yes. Not because you were perfect, but because you tried. Not because you never made mistakes, but because you learned from them. Not because you won, but because you fought. That is what it means to be human. To see injustice and say no. To see tyranny and resist. To see darkness and bring light. Sarah wiped her eyes. I miss you so much. I know. Elena's hologram said, even though it was just a recording. But I am still here, in every law we write, in every freedom we protect, in every person who stands up and says that might does not make right. I am here, and I always will be." The hologram faded. Sarah stood alone in the memorial garden, surrounded by the names of the dead. Around her, Earth turned. Above her, stars shone. And across the galaxy, 100 species were learning to govern themselves, to solve their own problems, to live without masters. It was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, still people who wanted power and were willing to hurt others to get it. But there was also hope. There was also justice. There was also the memory of a woman who had refused to bow, and a species that had refused to let her death be meaningless. The next day, the first session of the new Galactic Assembly convened. Representatives from 100 species gathered, not in a throne room, not in a chamber designed to intimidate, but in a simple circular hall where every seat was equal. No one sat above, no one sat below. Just people trying to figure out how to live together. Sarah was there as Earth's representative. She stood to speak and the chamber fell silent. 300 days ago, she began, the Galactic Council executed my wife because she refused to surrender human colonies. They thought her death would make humanity kneel. They were wrong. It made us stand. It made us fight. And it brought us here to this moment where we can finally build something better than what came before. She looked around the chamber at the faces of representatives from species that had been enemies, slaves, and strangers. We have all suffered. We have all lost people we loved. We all bear scars from the war, but we also have a chance now. A chance to prove that different species can work together, that justice can exist without tyranny, that peace can be built on respect instead of fear. It will not be easy, Sarah continued. We will argue. We will disagree. We will make mistakes. But we will do it together as equals, not as masters and servants, not as conquerors and conquered, just as people who share a galaxy and want to make it better for those who come after us. She raised her hand in a gesture of unity. For Elena, for all those who died, for all those who will live, let us begin. The assembly applauded, not because the future was certain, not because all problems were solved, but because for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy had hope, and hope, humanity had learned, was the most powerful weapon of all. Sarah left the assembly that evening and walked through the gardens outside. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors of orange and red. She thought about Elena, about their daughter Maya, who was studying to be a diplomat like her mother, about all the people who had fought and died so this day could come. "We did it," she whispered to the sky. "It is not perfect. It is not everything you dreamed of, but it is better. It is so much better. And we will keep making it better. That is my promise to you. Every day, we will try to be a little bit more worthy of the sacrifice you made." The stars began to appear. Somewhere up there was Nexus Prime, rebuilding under new leadership. Somewhere was Proxima Station, being reconstructed by humans and aliens working side by side. Somewhere were all the worlds that had been freed, all the people learning what it meant to govern themselves. The galaxy was healing. Slowly, painfully, but healing. And humanity, the youngest species to walk among the stars, had learned its place in the universe, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as guardians, as friends, as people who would stand up when others could not, who would fight when others would not, who would light a candle rather than curse the darkness. Elena would have been proud. Sarah went home to her family, to her daughter, to the life they were building in this new galaxy. The war was over. The healing had begun. And somewhere, in the memory of every person who had stood up and fought, Elena Vasquez smiled. The galaxy had learned its lesson. You can kill a person, but you cannot kill an idea, and the idea of freedom, once planted, grows forever. Even in the darkest night, even against impossible odds, even when all hope seems lost, there will always be someone who says no, who stands up, who fights back. Usually that someone is human, and that is all the galaxy really needed to know.